Hey guys, it's Coffeeyay here. I'm just continuing doing hand history reviews, looking at specific tough spots and trying to, optimize the line we take in them. So let's just. All right, so we're just gonna do some hand history reviews here. Um, because I don't have any specific reads given, I'm gonna treat each hand readless. I'll try to comment when something's interesting, if we did have reads or what kind of reads a play would require. But for now, we'll just treat it readless. So we've got, okay, Jack 8 suited. So this is certainly a flat versus most players. Versus some regs, I would 3-bet shove, but yeah, flatting looks good. All right, 35. Yeah, so I mean, this is just not a place where we want to check raise for value. So yeah, so so yeah, I'm not check raising for value. I mean, we would need some really solid reads that villain will spew really hard versus a check raise. That they'll get it in very light. Because there just aren't that many hands that we beat that are going to be getting it in here. I mean, we get some value now by check raising. I mean, I don't think he's going to fold an 8 to a check raise, but I do think that, he will fold probably most of his 3x. Again, we probably get some value versus straight draws, but, we need to think about his total range when he c-bets here, and it's going to be, quite wide likely. I mean, it's not super wide because, we're saying he's readless, and so he's got so fish doesn't c-bet that much, but still it's going to be much wider than just straight draws and weaker 8x. There's still a ton of bigger 8x, a ton of 10x, and a ton of other just random hands. I mean, there's a ton of gut shots, random overcards. There's a ton of hands that c-bet this kind of flop. It's a pretty dry flop. So I just think we don't have enough value to make a check raise here. I would just check call. It's going to be pretty easy to navigate. Likely I would check call a turn and fold most rivers. Versus fish, they tend to be pretty passive, so they'll, if they do have a value hand, it'll be patently obvious that they do, and we can deprive it of value. Whereas this way, all we do is we give extra value to the value hands, and we don't actually even get that much value out of anything else. Like, again, a straight draw is about all that we really maximize our expectation versus by check raising here. And obviously some weaker 8x. But even those weaker 8x, I mean, they're not going to be that happy to, to stack off or anything. And we're not even that happy stacking off here. So yeah, I think check calling is going to be better in almost every situation. Again, unless you have specific reads that villain will 3-bet super light over you, and you can induce. I mean, those are pretty specific spots. Given that we did check raise, I mean, we should be value betting here. Although I think it's a very thin value bet again. I mean, we're trying to keep him in with weaker 8x to 3x. This is just too big. I mean, this is just turning our hand into a bluff. I would bet 90 at most on this turn spot because, yeah, all we're doing here is turning our hand into a bluff. I'm trying to fold out 8x, and maybe we can fold out queen 8. But that seems, first of all, unlikely and completely unnecessary. I mean, it's a very, very small part of his range that's ahead of us and that we fold out. So, okay, and as played, I mean, we should probably thin value bet because it's hard to find a hand that he folds. But even so, I mean, it's really gross because, given that he flatted our check raise on the flop and called the turn bet, there just really aren't that many hands that we're ahead of, especially ones that call a bet. Like, there's a few 8x now that call a bet, and that's it. So actually, in retrospect, no. I mean, we shouldn't even thin value bet. We should just check fold here. It's just, we just have no equity share at this point. This is the only hand we're value betting versus is 8-9, and that's it. This is literally, I mean, maybe there's 7-8. But you can see that, he had his flush draw. That's another reason why I called. I mean, I do think that we likely fold out a lot of 8x on the turn. As I said, I mean, we sort of turned our hand into a bluff on the turn. So yeah, I mean, we happened to get lucky here and, and stacked him. But I think this is literally the only hand that we played correctly versus, especially on the river. I think that, versus most players, we can even just check fold the river. But I really don't like the check raise to begin with. All right, 6-3 suited. Readless, I actually think this is a really good spot to raise, not all in. I would probably raise pretty big, though, like 80 or 70. It's just a spot most fish tend to limp really weak hands, and so they fold a lot, and they fold a lot post, too. So we can raise not all in here, get a ton of folds, and then bet the flop and get some more folds. It's very similar to 3-bet bluffing. And as played, Leading here is going to be better. Most fish tend to be quite passive, especially in position. Especially in limped pots, I should say. They tend to be quite passive in position, especially in limped pots. I think that we should lead here for value. Something like 30. Um, it's pretty close to wanting check raise, but again, I think that this is the kind of board texture where a lot of his range checks back. There's a lot of hands that are pretty happy checking back here, and there's a lot of just weak hands. But a lot of those hands will happily call a bet. I mean, he's never folding 2 overcards in this kind of spot when we lead. So I really think that, we're going to just get a wider range continuing versus our lead than we will get c-betting. And, as played, yeah, we should c-bet bet here. I think likely 35 is a little bit better. We want to keep as much as range in. It doesn't really matter, though. Potting, it's fine. And at this point, we should shove for value. There's no other option. I mean, he's raising here. We have a strong value hand. He's stacking off here with any jack, any flush draw, probably any 6 or any, over pairs. I mean, there's lots of weird hands in his range that limped. He could have aces, kings, queens, and decide a slow play. Like, we should just shove here for value. I really don't like this call. Because it's just so unlikely that he's going to, first off, bluff in this kind of spot, and then second off, be willing to bluff rivers on top of it. So yeah, obviously, I mean, once we elect to call, I mean, it's sort of with the read or with the idea that he's going to bluff rivers. So yeah, we should check to him. But again, readless, that's just not a good assumption. We should just stack off on turn. And yeah, he would have just happily stacked off with his jack, and he's not even thin value betting it. I mean, this is why we need to just stack off on turn, because we lost a lot of value. And this is also why we should have led the flop in the first place. If we had led the flop, he would have called, we lead the turn, he ships over us, and we get it in easily as well. So yeah, I think we definitely lost value in that hand. All right, open up 10-6, that's fine. C-bet, fine. Yeah, there's really no reason not to c-bet this board, unless you're facing some crazy check raiser. Fine. This is a good board, good turn to barrel. I would be barreling here. At this point, the 9 and 5 are becoming weak value. Throw in the fact that we have a gut shot, and I'm very happy barreling here. So, given the stack sizes, I'm definitely intending to 3-barrel. So we want to leave enough room to 3-barrel. So I would probably likely bet on the smaller side, like less than half pot, something like 60, 70. Yeah, I don't think we should be checking back here. There's just so many hands we can fold out by 3-barreling. It's such a good board texture for 3-barreling. And as played, just check back for showdown value. There's no reason to turn our hand into a bluff at this point. If we had bet the turn, the river, and he called, the river becomes really close. I think it's a check back because we do beat his 5x, and but it's really close. Again, I mean, I do think we will probably fold out 9x by shipping river, so it ends up being a very, very close spot as to whether we actually shove this river or not. I mean, we're shoving most other rivers, but it ends up being very close. One of the reasons we can elect to shove the river is because most fish will just open shove if they did hit a flush. So we know his range is quite capped. I would probably check back because, again, we know we're beating the 5. We're beating some other straight draws. We do beat a decent amount of hands we would fold out. And obviously we're not always folding out a 9 as well. And obviously there are other value hands that we do, give value to. So I would check back this particular river. I would be bluffing if we didn't have showdown value. But as played, I don't understand this bet. We're just turning our hand into a bluff here. And if we were wanted to bluff, why didn't we bluff the turn? It's a much better bluff spot. This is, now you're essentially betting for thin value out of a 5, and it's just way too thin of a range because he's always calling you here with a jack, a 9, or a king. Yeah, always. So yeah, definitely don't like your line here.